Okay, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. The webinar will begin. I am recording this for playback purposes, so this will be available for playback. Today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, in our webinar series, the Windchill apps that are focused on the enterprise. So 2 weeks ago in the webinar, we were looking at apps targeted towards the engineering work group. Today we're going to take a look at some of the additional apps, most of them standard apps that work with Windchill, targeted towards the rest of the enterprise, of course, in addition to the engineering work group. We're going to take a look at today at three types of apps. I'm also going to show one more, just an example. First one we're going to look at is the portal, change analysis, and we're going to briefly mention the content export bundle. We looked at content export last week, and there is an addition to it for exporting other items, as well as talking about how can we enable system connectivity within a company, because we realize companies have various systems. They could be their own company portals, they could be ERP systems, and now Windchill or other PLM systems. How can we get them to communicate? Also, how can we have users, instead of searching one system at a time and then comparing information, how can we present that information in a more quicker, streamlined way for the end user? So when I go and look at a bill of material, for example, or I look at a part number, how can I have just one place to look at that? And there are some apps that we're going to see examples of that could do this for you. And then we're going to look at some questions and answers, or anything else that we haven't covered if we have time. So before I begin, just a quick recap. What are these apps? So, every system has gaps. Every system has ways that the company wants to work in, but the system is designed a different way. And that goes, or is true for various systems, and Windchill being one of these. So what TriStar has done is we've partnered with a company that has developed some of these applications for the end users, as well as some applications that fill in the gaps or provide enhancements to your Windchill system today. These apps are software as a service. You own them, you install them on your own system, but they are managed, the installation of it, by a software management repository. So if you need to upgrade, if you upgrade your Windchill, these apps can be tracked to see whether they're compatible and what type of updates need to occur. These apps also work across various versions of Windchill. So even if you have Windchill 9.1 or Windchill 10, or even the newly released Windchill 11, a lot of these apps can work across releases without updates. These apps could also be customized, so they can add additional functionality that you don't see with those that come out of the box. These apps also work across different modules within Windchill. So whether you have PDM Link, Project Link, and PM Link, using some of the change management functionality and the associated workflows, these apps touch upon different areas within those modules to provide some enhanced functionality. Examples being, if you need to manage certain processes within the company, like your Six Sigma or APQP, or even various industry specific, like DHF records and ISO compatibility. These apps can aggregate information to give you a status either in the dashboard or in the app, which we'll see some of that today, to give you that quick way of understanding the status of where that product is, or whether any documentation is updated or required for that specific process. And we're also going to take a look at how we can enable an interface from Windchill or to Windchill from some other systems. So one example being an ERP system or other systems you may be using today. These apps are supported by a company called Wincom, which TriStar has partnered with. They are essentially Windchill developers, and they understand the system in and out. They're great at creating and modifying information like these apps for customers. They have hundreds of these today at various customers doing whatever these customers need. And TriStar is an exclusive distributor of these. And these apps also are managed by an installation system. So for the downstream administrators, it's very easy to maintain these, and they will be maintained from the Windchill system. It's not a separate system you have to maintain. So let's take a look at some of these apps today. We're going to take a look at one of these, which is the portal. So if we take a look at the life of a part or a document within product development, it goes through various stages. There are various apps that enhance the way you work with these documents or these parts within Windchill. One of these being the portal and the change analysis, content export. And we took a look at some of these previously. So at various stages of the life cycle, these apps could be used to just enhance the functionality that you currently have, or let other people within the company get access to Windchill in a much easier and quicker way. Even if they don't use Windchill every day, there's a lot of information that they can then go in and self-serve themselves to get that information without waiting on engineering to provide various people in the company with this information, or duplicating that information out of Windchill to some other system. So let's take a look at some of these apps. The first one we're going to take a look at is the portal app. So last time we saw an easier way of searching Windchill through the flexible light search. This app here provides a simplified interface into a Windchill part, a document, and gives the end user a much more user-friendly experience. These apps are not creating any information. They're not storing any information that is not outside of Windchill. Now, they can aggregate information. They can pull information from other systems like downstream ERP, MRP systems, or other databases, but they're not in themselves creating anything new. So they're mostly read-only. They will show you information that exists in Windchill and other information that you may pull into this app. This is a lightweight app, so it's very easily accessible on a tablet or a phone. It's already designed for that format. These apps will expose information out of Windchill, so whether it's a 3D view of a part or assembly, a 2D drawing, you can even expose information such as associated documents, changes, ECNs, problem reports, as well as the bill of material structure and the quantities of parts if it's an assembly. This portal can also be customized to add or remove these various tabs. Some companies have various document types for different processes, so could be work instructions, could be inspection documents, and just like the previous apps on the flexible light search, this app will respect the Windchill permissions. So if the user doesn't have access to a certain file, they will not be able to access it using this app. But also this app can layer on top permissions in itself. So one example being, even though the user has access to unreleased objects in Windchill, this app could be configured to only show released through it itself. Now this portal can also be launched from other systems. So this portal can also be launched from an example ERP system, where in the ERP system you can have a hyperlink that links back to a file within Windchill, let's say a drawing, but this portal can kind of sit in between that to make sure you're always getting the latest hyperlink between Windchill and other systems like the ERP system. So the value that this app could bring to the end user is for those non-technical users or the rest of the enterprise users, they have a much simpler way of viewing information out of Windchill. So let's take a look at an example of this app. I'm going to get into my Windchill system. So I'll open up a web browser, and in my web browser, I have a link to my flexible light search that we saw last time. So in the flexible light search, what I'll do is I'll search for a part number or a description of a part. This will bring me to a list of components that I'm getting. The flexible light search for the enterprise can also contain these Windchill parts in addition to CAD files. So for example, I have a Windchill part which I can then look at the information of, or look at the information on. But also I have another link right beside it that lets me open this part information inside of a portal page. So this is the portal app that's working here. Right? I get this simplified view of what this part is, so it's some kind of a bar. And I can also see its associated attributes that come out of Windchill. So if you have your standard attributes and company-defined attributes like descriptions, materials, and so on, version information, who's this created by, you can see these on the description page. And also the content page. So right from this portal, if I need to download a step file or an IGES file, those two are available for me. So for example, I can click on the step file link, and then out of this portal, this will just allow me to download it or open it with a program that I have to open those type of files. Now I can also go in and look at some of these other tabs for information. Now the drawing is grayed out. The tab, that means this doesn't have a drawing. So I may need to wait for this drawing to be created. Does it have any associated ECNs or ECRs if I'm using the Windchill ECN ECR functionality? It does. There is one ECR number that's associated to it. Now, if I had this app pulling information out of other systems, I may show what type of ECR information is associated inside of the ERP system or what has been created previously, as well as any type of reference documents and so on. Now, this is a single part, and that's the information I'm showing on this single part. Now, let's take a look at the search again and take a look at an assembly. So if I go into the portal of the central mechanism assembly, this will now show me a small assembly of components. Now, this is a Creo view representation that's coming directly out of Windchill. So if I click on that link, this will allow me to load Creo view and interrogate this part, do exploded views, section views, and so on. The same functionality that I have as a Creo view Lite user within Windchill, create markups and so on. Excuse me. Now, if I go into the contents tab, this one doesn't have anything. So no contents are created for this assembly. If I go into the uses tab, this is going to show me the component list of this assembly. So I can see this one's using 32 bolts and 32 washers. Now, each of these can also have their own portal links. So if I want to take a look at some information about one of these components, I can click on this link here, and this will bring me into the portal view of that component. This one doesn't have any viewables defined for it, so I'm not going to go into it. Under the reference documents in Windchill, especially if this is a WT part or a part, not a CAD document, you can associate documents to that part number. And these are the documents that have been associated within Windchill that are coming in as reference documents within this portal. Now, the test results, there's a Microsoft Word file attached to it, so I can click on it and directly open up that Microsoft Word file and look at it. Now, I don't know what this content is. There's a demo header in that file only. But any of these files which have any kind of content, I can download and open. Now, these could also have secondary content. So if I'm publishing these original source files to like a PDF through the Office Worker app, that's also available. Then I can have a PDF with watermarks, stamps, signatures on it that I can also download as that secondary content if this is released. And I can also take a look at and cycle through changes, problem reports that are coming out of the ECN system. Now this one does have a drawing, this part number. So any associated drawings I can then click on and again open inside of the viewer, Creo view, or if there's a PDF or DXF representation of it, I can also go in and download the PDF into my system. So the portal is your one-stop location of information to get everything that's associated to this part number. Now, if I go back into the flexible light search, I can also then click on that part number, and of course that will bring me now into Windchill. So that same information that I was showing in the portal is in the Windchill system. The portal is just a simplified view of that information. And again, tabs can be added and removed. This portal could be configured for a company requirement as well. Okay, so that was an example of the portal app that's available. Let's look at the next one. The next app that we want to take a look at is the change analysis app. So if you're using the ECN functionality within Windchill, sometimes it's very difficult to understand for a specific ECN what has actually changed and what were those changes. So what this app allows you to do is dynamically within Windchill display a analysis of what has changed on that change task. So within each ECN or ECR, they're most of the time in the ECN because that's where changes occur. This is where you can capture various tasks that would carry out the modification to resolve this change. And each of these tasks would have changes, and this app would show you what type of changes have occurred. So there's various flags that will just signal to the user what type of change it was. This change analysis can be also exported to a report, like a Word file or a PDF for a specific bill of material or a part that's been changed on that ECN. This change analysis tab can also pull in information just like the portal from other systems. So we can pull in information from other systems like ERP systems to show information such as if there was a change to quantity or if there was a change to the version. I might want to see some maybe disposition information. I might want to see inventory information. I might want to see effectivity information that may exist in the ERP system or within Windchill and consolidate the two together. So again, this app just, instead of searching through and getting this information or creating reports to get this information, it just presents it to you in a much simplified way. So let's take a look at an example of this. So again, if I go back into my Windchill system, let me go into one of these ECNs I have inside of the system. And one of the ECNs I have here is the 0021 ECN on the bottling machine. Let's go into the details page of that ECN. Where this app sits is another tab within the ECN page. So here I have an implementation plan with a series of tasks, and I have a change analysis tab, which now shows me information from that app about this change notice. So I can see that I have a summary of the various tasks, and one of these tasks is the CAD changes. And in the CAD changes, this app will show me which actual parts within that affected item have changed and what was the actual change. So I can see that some of this central or this grip mechanism arm revised from a revision of 1 to 2. Some of these parts were added. The quantity may have changed. So there's a quantity of 3. Most of these are just added at the first level. And this way, these are the changes that have occurred. Now at the bottom here, there's also the ability to see what were the status of these, or what was this BOM or this part before the change. So I can see how many components this had initially if it wasn't under change. But I can see that these parts were added to this and this was versioned. And of course, I can also see after change, which is going to show me the same information, but in a full view of that bill of material, not only the components that change. So I can expand out this task, I can expand out this bill of material, and now see the final result. Now this change analysis can also be exported out. So I can export this out to an Excel file or PDF file to capture what has happened with this change. And reporting can also be created on this, so you can then report out on this type of change. Now this one doesn't have any links because this is not one of the things that I have published yet. It's still under implementation. This change hasn't been resolved. But directly from here, I can also link to other apps like the portal link. So for example, I can see this information in the portal if I need to as well. So this app just sits within Windchill. It's just another tab called the change analysis on the change notice that you can see that information that comes across. And one of the other apps that we want to take a look at is the content export. So we looked at content export last week, where I can pick an assembly or a part number on the CAD side and download all the drawings, all the PDF representations, the step files. So the difference on the enterprise side is that now I can do this at the part level. So I can go into my part number and I can go in under the Actions tab and download all of the associated items. So the content export would be just an item under the export tab within the actual part. So this is not the one, it's a different one that I have in my system. So I don't want to spend too much time, but the extension of this is to Windchill parts and all the associated information. So if those parts have documents, if those parts have associated ECNs to them, this content export can get all that information and export it out into a zip file or some kind of a package that you can then take out of Windchill or distribute or archive. Now I also want to take a look at the system connectivity. And one example I want to take a look at is how can we connect Windchill information with other systems like the ERP system. One example is to create a compatible export file out of Windchill to push into ERP. Another example is to enable a bidirectional link or a more automated link through some services like web services and protocols that communicate within various systems. So as an example, this app can give you a connectivity between various systems, and this is just using standard Windchill functionality. If your ERP system supports web calls, which most modern ERP systems do today, we can integrate and pull and push information from one to the other. So as an example, I have just a quick example of how an ERP system could work connected with some of these apps and connected to Windchill. So here's an example screen from one of the ERP systems on the market today. And within the ERP system, you'll typically have a link to a PDF or a document. Now, instead of duplicating these, we can directly look into Windchill through the portal. So I can go in here and click on the actual PDF, but now this is a hyperlink, which if I click on it, will bring me directly to that information in Windchill within the portal app. So the user doesn't really know that they're going into Windchill. They don't necessarily need to know how to use Windchill, but this will just give me information that's stored in that system because engineering is the owner of that CAD, that design, or that released design assembly. So again, if I need a quick drawing, this brought me directly into the information page of the 3D model. I can also set this up to link automatically to a drawing. I can also bypass this portal page and directly download that PDF drawing just by clicking on that link within my other system. So this is the type of integration that we can enable within various systems. So that was a quick overview of some of these apps. I thank you for your attention. We'll go into some questions if there are any in the questions toolbar, and take a look at any of these questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to submit these in the chat window and we can answer them. If you need more information about some of these apps, please contact your TriStar sales representative and we'll be happy to get into more details about some of these apps and show you these as well. Okay, so we have a few questions. I'll tackle the first one. What are the benefits of these compared to the announcement from PTC of the PTC Navigate apps new in Windchill 11 that are built on ThingWorx? So that's a good question. We always get these. So right now, PTC is developing something similar where they're developing a much simpler interface into Windchill. So the apps do very similar things. The requirement for those apps is the ThingWorx platform that would sit on that would be used and then communicate with Windchill. The difference with these apps, they don't require additional software. They communicate with Windchill directly. They are sometimes integrated within the Windchill interface. The portal is just a web-based version of it. There's no back-end software that you need to install other than the app itself onto the Windchill system. So the installation and complexity of the software required is a lot less compared to those apps. These apps today will integrate and pull information from other systems and give you information across various modules within Windchill. PTC is rolling out these Navigate apps in stages. So their functionality is the full functionality of these Wincom apps is not available today in the PTC Navigate, and they probably won't be available for the next few years. So if you need this type of functionality today to improve your work and streamline some of the processes within the company, then these apps will help you today. And really, these PTC Navigate apps are fairly new, so we don't have all the information about cost, licensing to compare it to. The Wincom apps, in terms of cost, are very affordable. They are primarily server-based and so they're not per user based. So you can have as many users using these apps as you have within the company or available, depending on how they access Windchill and so on. So it could be, for a lot of users, it could be a lower price point than some of the PTC apps. But at this point, we don't have enough information to make that statement as definitive. So the question was about what's the difference between, I guess it's IoT and the Wincom portal. So they're just using totally different technologies. The Wincom portal, the functionality is very similar. The Wincom portal has a lot more functionality in terms of communicating with other systems that the PTC system doesn't have today. In terms of PTC Navigate, the IoT, I'm not sure about that itself. I'm sure it needs to be configured to communicate with Windchill. So this portal app is already developed. It's out of the box, and you can install it today and get the information that you've seen out of Windchill without further customization. This will be recorded and posted online, so look for it in a few days on TriStar's webpage. And one other question, where can this application be downloaded? So have a look at TriStar's webpage. We have some information about those apps. You can take a look at some videos on how they work. I don't believe there's any trial versions of this app for free, but contact your TriStar sales representative and they can arrange something if you're interested to test out. Another question, can the content export create files on demand? So yes, it can. So, it will present to you files that already have been published within Windchill, but you can also get a checkbox option that would also publish files on demand. Because not everybody would want to, for example, create a step file for every part in the system. They might want to just create step files of certain parts that they might want to send to their suppliers for quotes, or to purchasing for quotes, or to their customers. So yes, you can have an on-demand capability to, when you pull up that export, to have checkboxes on what you want for each of those BOM components, and that way you can create a customized list and have Windchill publish that on demand. Okay, there are, looks like there's no more questions. I'll wait another couple of minutes and we'll wrap up this webinar. For any more questions, okay, I don't see any other questions. So thanks for attending, and look for the link to this webinar if you need to review it, or if you have any additional questions, contact TriStar, or we'll be happy to help you out. Okay, I think we have someone typing in the question. Let's get to that one. if you can, okay, last question. Does the Wincom portal work only with Windchill parts, or can it work with CAD models like Creo and so on? So it could work with both. There's a filter that you can set for a particular file that would expose CAD models or parts. The default is only looking at WT parts or Windchill parts. So the default doesn't work on CAD parts, but there's a setting that you can expose those to other files within the system. So if you're not using WT parts, you know, just like the flexible light search, you can get information on other parts like CAD models from various CAD systems. If they have viewables or information or additional files published, you can also see that through the portal. But the main goal of the portal is to work with WT parts because they will show you links to other things like documents, ECNs, which, you know, that provides greater value, and also consolidating information from other systems like ERP systems for inventories, for you know, disposition information, for you know, items associated to inventory. So, but it can work with both. It just needs to be configured. And of course, it can be customized to add additional functionality that you don't see in the out of the box. Okay, thanks for your time, everyone, and have a great day.